The rain had been coming down for 3 days straight when I first heard her crying through the fence. I wasn't trying to listen. I was just standing on my back porch with a cup of coffee going cold in my hands, watching the water pool in the gutters, when I heard a small, broken sound coming from the yard next door. I set my cup down on the railing and walked closer, careful not to make noise. And that's when I saw her, a little girl, only 7 years old, sitting on the wet steps of her back porch, with her knees pulled up to her chest, soaked through, not caring at all about the rain. Her name was Wrenna. I didn't know that yet. All I knew was that something in the way she cried told me this wasn't about a scraped knee or a broken toy. This was a different kind of crying, the kind that comes from somewhere deep, somewhere a 7-year-old shouldn't have access to yet. I'd lived next to that house for almost 8 months by then, ever since my wife passed, and I sold the place we'd shared for 22 years because I couldn't stand walking past her reading chair every morning. I'd kept to myself mostly, waved at my neighbors, nodded at the mailman. That was about the extent of my social calendar. I knew the woman who lived there was named Corvina, and I knew she worked long shifts at the hospital because I'd see her car pull in at odd hours, headlights sweeping across my living room wall at 2 in the morning. Sometimes I knew there was no man around, and I knew from the way Corvina carried herself when she walked to her car in the mornings, shoulders curled in, like she was bracing against something. Even on sunny days, that life had not been kind to her in a good long while. But I didn't know Wrenna, not really. We'd exchanged maybe 3 words total, mostly about a ball that had rolled into my yard once. That evening though, standing at the fence with the rain soaking through my flannel shirt, I made a decision I hadn't planned on making. I walked over. "Hey, there," I said, keeping my voice soft, the way you'd talk to a spooked animal. "You're gonna catch a cold sitting out here." She looked up at me, and I swear, the look on her face nearly broke something loose in my chest. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her dark hair plastered to her forehead, and there was this expression on her, not fear exactly, but a kind of tired wariness that no child should carry, like she'd already learned that grown-ups mostly disappoint you. "I'm fine," she said, which is what kids say when they are the opposite of fine. I didn't push. I just stood there for a second, letting the rain fall on both of us. And then I asked, "Mind if an old man sits down? My knees are creaky, but the steps look sturdy enough." She shrugged, which I took as permission, so I lowered myself down onto the step beside her, keeping a respectful distance. We sat in silence for a while, just the two of us and the rain drumming on the porch roof. Finally, she spoke, so quiet, I almost missed it. "Nobody wants a mom like mine." I felt my chest tighten. "What do you mean by that?" She wiped her nose with the back of her hand. "At school, Delphini's mom picks her up in a car with a man in it, and Marlo's mom has a boyfriend who takes them to the fair, but nobody ever wants my mom. She's tired all the time, and she cries when she thinks I'm asleep. And Grammy says no man wants a woman with a broken heart and a kid that isn't even his." Her voice cracked on the last part. "So I guess it's just gonna be me and her forever. And everybody's gonna feel sorry for us." I sat there for a long moment, letting her words settle over me like the rain settling into my shirt. I thought about my own late wife, Odessa, and how she used to say that children absorb the world around them long before they understand it. They just soak it up like sponges, every unspoken fear, every whispered worry, and it becomes part of them before anyone realizes what's happened. Somebody, probably a grandmother worn down by her own disappointments, or maybe just a careless comment overheard at the wrong time, had planted that belief in this little girl's heart, and it had taken root. And now here she was, 7 years old, already grieving a future she hadn't even lived yet. "Can I tell you something?" I said. She looked at me sideways, still guarded, but curious enough to nod. "I don't know your mom very well. I've only really seen her wave from her car or carry in groceries. But I know this. Broken hearts aren't something to be ashamed of. They mean somebody loved hard enough to get hurt. That's not weakness, sweetheart. That's about the bravest thing a person can do. Wrenna considered this with the kind of seriousness only children can manage. Her brow furrowed like she was doing long division in her head. My wife used to tell me that love isn't about finding someone perfect, I continued. It's about finding someone who chooses to stay even when things get hard. Your mom hasn't given up. She's still here, still working, still tucking you in every night. That's not somebody nobody wants. That's somebody worth fighting for. She didn't say anything to that, just stared out at the rain, but something in her shoulders loosened, just slightly. And when Corvina's car pulled into the driveway a few minutes later, headlights cutting through the gray evening, Wrenna scrambled up and ran inside without another word, and I figured that was an old man's rambling, forgotten by morning. I was wrong. 3 days later, found a drawing tucked into my screen door. Crayon, the kind with the paper peeling off the sides from overuse. It was a picture of two stick figures sitting on porch steps in blue crayon rain, and underneath, in wobbly, 7-year-old handwriting, it said, "Thank you for talking to me, Wrenna." I stood on my porch holding that drawing for longer than I care to admit, feeling something in my chest that I hadn't felt in the 8 months since Odessa died. Not happiness, exactly, more like purpose. Like, maybe I hadn't just been marking time in that house. After all, I started noticing things after that. Small things. The way Corvina's porch light stayed on until well past midnight some nights. Like she was afraid of what the darkness might bring if she let it fully settle. The way her trash can sat out for days sometimes because there was no one to help her wheel them back. The way Wrenna's bicycle had a flat tire that nobody had fixed in what looked like weeks. I want to be honest with you here, because the story isn't worth telling if I'm not honest. I didn't step in that first week because I fell in love with Corvina at first sight, or because I had some grand romantic notion. I stepped in because I saw a little girl who believed her family was somehow defective, unlovable, something to be pitied. And I saw a mother who was drowning so quietly that nobody around her had noticed the water was already up to her chin. So one Saturday morning, I walked over with my toolbox and knocked on the door. Corvina answered, looking exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, still in her scrubs from what must have been a night shift. She blinked at me in surprise. "Mr. Beauregard, right?" she said, using the last name I'd introduced myself with months ago, and clearly never expected to use again. "That's right. Look, I don't mean to intrude, but I noticed Wrenna's bike has been sitting with the flat for a while now, and I've got a pump and a patch kit, just collecting dust in my garage. Figured I'd put them to use, if that's all right with you." She stared at me for a moment, and I watched something complicated pass across her face: suspicion, exhaustion, and underneath it all, a flicker of something that looked almost like disbelief that someone would offer to help without wanting something in return. "You don't have to do that," she said. "I know I don't have to. I want to." There was a long pause, and then she stepped back from the door. "Well, I guess I can't say no to a free bike repair." That was the beginning of it, though I didn't know it at the time. I fixed the bike. Then, the following week, I noticed her gutters were clogged and offered to clean them while I was already up on a ladder doing my own. Then it was helping Wrenna with the school project about the solar system, because Corvina had a double shift and couldn't be there. And Wrenna had asked me herself, standing at the fence with a hopeful, nervous look on her face, like she expected me to say no. I never said no. Weeks turned into a couple of months. I learned things about Corvina I hadn't expected to learn. I learned that Wrenna's father, a man named Thaddeus, had left before Wrenna was even 1 year old, unable to handle the weight of fatherhood, and had never once sent a birthday card since. I learned that Corvina worked as a trauma nurse, which meant she spent her days holding together the broken bodies of strangers, and then came home to try to hold together her own small, broken family with whatever strength she had left. I learned that her own mother, the grandmother Wrenna had quoted, meant well, but had old-fashioned, harsh ideas about what made a woman worth loving, and had said things in front of Wrenna that she probably shouldn't have. And I learned that Corvina laughed easily when she let herself a real laugh that crinkled the corners of her eyes, and that she had a habit of humming old country songs while she gardened on her rare days off, and that she noticed whenever she and Wrenna were. One evening in late September, the three of us ended up sitting together on my back porch because Wrenna had insisted on showing me a ladybug she'd found, and it had turned into an hour of the two of them staying for lemonade. Wrenna had run off to chase fireflies in the yard, and Corvina and I sat uncomfortable. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course. You don't owe us anything." I thought about how to answer that honestly. "A few months back, your daughter told me nobody wants a mom like hers. Told me it like it was just a fact of life. Like the sky being blue, about herself and her mother. Like they were somehow lesser for what life handed them." I paused, watching Wrenna's small shape chase a firefly across the darkening yard. "I lost my wife almost a year ago. Best woman I ever knew. And after she passed, I figured my life for being useful to anybody was pretty much over. Then I met the two of you, and for the first time in a long while, I had a reason to get up and do something besides drink coffee and stare at the walls." Corvina was quiet for a long moment, and when I glanced at her, her eyes were shining in the porch light. "She really said that? That nobody wants a mom like me?" "She did, and I told her she was wrong, and I meant it." Corvina wiped at her eyes, laughing a little at herself. "God, I didn't realize she was carrying that around. I try so hard to protect her from feeling like we're some kind of broken family just because it's the two of us." "You're not broken," I said, and I meant every word of it. "You're one of the strongest people I've ever met. I've watched you work double shifts and still make it to that kid's dance recital. I've watched you patch up your own exhaustion with whatever's left over so she never has to feel it. That's not broken, Corvina. That's about as whole as a person can be." She didn't say anything right away. She just looked at me, really looked, in a way she hadn't before, like she was seeing something she hadn't let herself consider until that moment. I won't pretend the months that followed were some fairy tale montage. They weren't. There were hard days. A car accident that put one of Corvina's co-workers in intensive care and left her shaken for a week. A school incident where another kid mocked Wrenna for not having a dad show up to a father-daughter event, which nearly broke my heart clean in half when I heard about it. I ended up going to the makeup event they organized afterward, not as anybody's father, just as the neighbor who'd shown up, and Wrenna held my hand the entire time and introduced me to her friends as my friend Roscoe. That's my name, in case I haven't said it, with a pride in her voice that undid me completely. Slowly, without either of us really naming what was happening, Corvina and I became something more than neighbors. It started with dinners, just simple ones, spaghetti or grilled cheese, the three of us around her small kitchen table. Then it became weekend mornings where I'd bring over coffee and we'd sit on the porch while Wrenna rode her now fixed bike up and down the sidewalk. Then, one night in November, after Wrenna had fallen asleep on the couch during a movie, Corvina and I sat together in the quiet of her living room, and she reached over and took my hand, and neither of us said anything because nothing needed to be said. I want to tell you about the night everything truly changed though, because that's the part of this story that matters most. It was a Tuesday, cold enough that frost had started forming on the windows. Overnight, Wrenna had a nightmare, something about her father, and she came padding into the living room where Corvina and I were sitting, tears streaming down her face, and she crawled up onto the couch between us without a word, the way kids do when the world feels too big and scary to face alone. Corvina wrapped her arms around her, whispering that everything was all right, and I sat there feeling like maybe I was intruding on something private, something that wasn't mine to witness. But then Wrenna looked up at me, her small face still wet with tears, and she asked, "Roscoe, are you gonna leave too? Like my dad did?" The question hit me like a physical blow. I felt Corvina go still beside me, watching me, waiting. And I understood in that moment that this wasn't just a child's fear speaking. This was the real question underneath everything, the fear that had made Wrenna cry on those porch steps all those months ago. The fear that had convinced her nobody could truly want her broken little family. I got down on my knees in front of that couch, so I was eye level with her, and I took her small hands in mine. Wrenna, I want you to listen to me very carefully, because I need you to believe this. I am not your father, and I can't undo what he did, and I'm sorry that happened to you, truly sorry. But I can promise you this, I am not going anywhere tomorrow, not next year, ever. As long as you and your mom will have me. You hear me? Some people leave because they're scared, or selfish, or just not ready to love somebody the way they deserve to be loved. But some of us stay because we finally found something worth staying for. And that's what you and your mama are to me. Something worth staying for. Wrenna stared at me for a long moment, her small face searching mine for any sign that I was just saying words to make her feel better. Kids can tell the difference, you know. They always can. And whatever she saw in my face must have convinced her, because she threw her arms around my neck and held on tight. And over her shoulder, I saw Corvina crying silently, her hand pressed to her mouth. Later that night, after Wrenna had finally fallen back asleep, tucked safely into her bed, Corvina and I stood in her kitchen, and she looked at me with an expression I'll never forget as long as I live. You meant that, she said. Every word of it. I did. Roscoe, I need you to understand something. I have been let down before. Not just by Wrenna's father, but by people who promised to stay and didn't, by family who said they'd help and disappeared when things got hard. I don't open myself up easily anymore. I built walls around this family because it was the only way I knew how to protect her. I know, I said, and I'm not asking you to tear those walls down overnight. I'm just asking you to let me keep showing up every day, if you'll let me, until you believe it. She stepped closer, and there, in that small kitchen, with the frost creeping across the windows, she kissed me, soft and hesitant at first, like she was testing whether the ground beneath her would hold. And it held. It held because I made sure it would. I proposed to Corvina the following spring on a Saturday afternoon in her backyard, with the same fence between our two properties still standing. Though by then, it hardly mattered, because we'd become one family in every way that counted. I didn't do anything elaborate. I got down on one knee by that same fence where Wrenna had once cried in the rain, and I asked Corvina to marry me, and I asked Wrenna too, if it would be alright with her, if she'd let me be part of their family for good. Not just as a neighbor, just as a friend, but as something permanent. Wrenna, who was 8 by then, burst into tears. Happy ones this time, and threw herself at me so hard, she nearly knocked me clean off my knee, and Corvina was laughing and crying at the same time, saying yes, before I'd even fully finished the question. We got married that autumn, small ceremony, just family and a few close friends, in the backyard under a maple tree that was just beginning to turn gold. Wrenna was there in a little blue dress, standing between us as we said our vows, and when the officiant asked if there was anyone who wanted to add anything, she raised her hand like she was in school, and said, "Can I say something?" Everyone laughed, and she stepped forward, this brave, bright little girl who had once believed nobody could ever love her mother again, and she said, "I used to think we were the family nobody wanted, but now I know we're the family somebody chose, and I think that's even better." There wasn't a dry eye among the guests, and certainly not on me. I picked her up, even though she was getting a bit big for it, and held her and her mother, both right there under that golden maple tree. And I thought about Odessa, about how she'd always believed that grief could crack a person open, just enough to let something new and good find its way in, if you let it. She was right, as she so often was. These days, our house, because it is our house now, we knocked down that old fence and made the 2 yards into one, is loud in all the best ways. Wrenna is 11 now, all elbows and opinions, still keeps that crayon drawing from all those years ago, framed on her bedroom wall. Corvina still works long shifts, but she doesn't come home to an empty house full of silence anymore. She comes home to me on the porch with coffee waiting, to Wrenna doing homework at the kitchen table, to a family that chose each other deliberately, fully, with open eyes. Sometimes, on quiet evenings, I sit on that same porch where I first heard a little girl crying in the rain, and I think about how close I came to just staying inside that day, minding my own business, letting my coffee go cold in peace. I think about how one small decision to step close instead of staying distant changed the entire shape of 3 lives. Wrenna doesn't believe anymore that nobody could love her mom. She's watched me love her mother through exhaustion and hard days, and every ordinary Tuesday in between. Watched me choose to stay when staying was simple and when it wasn't, and somewhere along the way, without either of us planning it, she stopped being the neighbor's little girl and became my daughter in every way except blood, which, as it turns out, was never really what mattered in the first place. Love doesn't always arrive the way you expect it to. Sometimes it doesn't come with fireworks or grand gestures. Sometimes it comes quietly through a flat bicycle tire, clogged gutter, science project about the solar system, a hand extended across a fence that used to separate two lonely houses. Sometimes it comes because a little girl was brave enough to cry where someone could hear her. And because that someone was willing to listen. I didn't just find a family that autumn. I found a reason to believe that even after loss, even after the parts of your life you thought were finished, love finds a way to step closer if you let it.
Stories like this remind us that family is not always about blood. Sometimes it is about who shows up. If this one moved you, share it with someone who needs a little hope today. And don't forget to subscribe because more heartfelt stories are coming your way soon.